Good morning, and thank you very much.
Good morning.
When I read the story here that we got to draw our attention to this story, to talk to somebody like you, I mean, one looked at the headline, talk about crime-fighting lab in a bloody mess as the report recommends its closure. Can they save this? Let's start there first.
Most definitely. It's a very sad state of affairs when it comes to the laboratories in South Africa. And it's not limited to the laboratory in Braamfontein that services 3 different provinces. When one looks at the 71 LCRC labs that are managed by SAPS throughout the country, they have serious challenges. When one looks at the NHLS, the National Health Laboratory Service, in March of this year, the President, in fact, signed a presidential proclamation to investigate alleged corruption within that laboratory. And then, of course, we've had issues that date back to allegations of corruption that have affected our ex-acting Commissioner, General Paklane, when he was head of the forensic services with a company known as FDA. So there's a lot of challenges that face our laboratories, and there seems to be a history of reasons why this is happening.
How can they be saved? Because you said, yes, they can save the Braamfontein one, and you've gone on to mention a slew of challenges, including allegations of corruption. In your view, how can this particular one, let's start in Braamfontein, for example, be saved?
Well, first of all, there's a massive backlog, so they need to bring in experts. The members that I've spoken to are exceptionally passionate about the work they do. They're not passionate about the organizations of which they are part of. They feel that the organizations that they are a part of are not taking it very seriously. Now, the saddest aspect to this entire story is the fact that it's these laboratories that have to give closure to families. So you've got PM, post-mortem reports that are outstanding for years. You've got families that don't know whether their children may have died from overdoses due to a toxicology report that may not have been presented on time or may never have been presented and is still in that backlog.
Now, standards-wise, I mean, we understand that report by Sizwe and Saluba Koboto in 2017 recommended that it should be closed until it can come up with another strategy to ensure it met the standards. I mean, one would understand that forensic investigation, just by its nature, is very complex and technical, and you need the right kind of expertise. And there's been an issue about the level of competence that exists in the laboratory. Is that also a major challenge in terms of we do not have in these labs, including the Braamfontein one, the right kind of skills?
There are skills, but there is a brain drain. If you don't receive the support necessary from senior management and you don't have budget or infrastructure to be able to deliver on a service, you're not going to be happy in that position, and that brain drain is going to occur. But one must take into consideration that the report says the lab must be closed. Well, then where do the bodies go? Unless public-private partnerships...
And also, what happens to the backlog?
Correct. What happens to the public-private partnerships? One looks at the Cape, and it's been well reported on ENCA the past 2 days that 1,875 murders have happened on the Cape Flats. In one day alone, there were 14 murders. Where would these bodies go? And that also adds to the backlog, is this massive crime surge that we're experiencing with regards to violent crime.
Now, the report that we've seen when we're preparing for, a media report that I saw when we're preparing for this interview, talks about the Department of Health saying corrective measures have been implemented. Are you aware that they are doing anything to correct the situation?
Well, one is to look at who's responsible. You've got 3 different organizations responsible for pathology labs across the country. You've got the NHLS, you've got provincial pathology, and then, of course, you've got SAPS. SAPS are the guys on the ground. They're the ones that have 71 of their own labs, which are not just used for pathology, but are also used for blood splatter analysis, ballistic reports, fingerprint analysis, etc. So it needs a task team that's made up of Department of Police, Department of Health, as well as the provincial role players.
So those 3 levels, I think we're going to need to touch base with them. Now, if I asked you now a question, with all understanding all these challenges that these labs are facing, very important role they play in the investigation of crime in our country, and I ask you, can we trust the reports that are coming out currently? Can we actually say with confidence that when they tell a family this is what caused your loved one's death, they could take that as a credible report, considering the challenges you've mentioned?
No, I must be honest. The most vulnerable of society have to take those reports at face value. They can't get the private sector involvement to come and review those particular reports. One has to look at the chain of evidence. When evidence is obtained, it has to be kept in a specific custody. The fridges are not the correct temperature. The storage facilities that are being used are not the correct storage facilities. So you have various tests that need to be conducted on specimens that should have been kept in a specific environment that's not happening.
That's a very sad state of affairs. I think we're going to have to try and follow up with the authorities, and especially some of those levels you've mentioned there. Thank you very much, Chad, for talking to us. Not a pretty picture. Chad Thomas from the IRS Forensic Investigations. Well, our public pathology labs across the country, particularly the one in Braamfontein, are facing tough times. And it's not good in the investigation of crime and finding that unnecessary closure for many families in terms of confirming the cause of death. We're going to have to delve deeper into this situation going forward. Now,